Presentation on Al Capone and the horrible crimes he committed and the crime that he was caught for in 1931, which is tax evasion. His Al Capone's early life. Capone came from an actual very respectable family. His father was named Gabriel and his mother was Teresa. His father was educated from Naples and had a profession, excuse me, as a barber. Uh, the family was originally from Italy and moved to the United States along with other Italian immigrants in January of 1899. We don't really know why because the home in Italy was in top class. It was in a good neighborhood. It was in good condition. It was very peaceful and very quiet, but it was known as just the opposite in Chicago. It was surrounded by loud and obnoxious drinking bars. It was very dirty, rat infested, and very unsanitary and unsafe. Uh, Al had two brothers. One was 2 years older than him, named Vincenzo, and another infant brother, which was named Raphael. And I got a little cool fact: he was expelled from the sixth grade for assaulting his teacher, which is believed by many people the start to his life of crime. And once when he was expelled from school, Al Capone never um, returned to school. He used petty jobs to support himself until he ultimately decided to really begin the life of crime. He began by as being a bodyguard for a man named Johnny Torrio, or he was also known as a factotum, which was just a like a person that could do various things. He didn't have like a set job, and Johnny Torrio was the head of the criminal syndicate who supplied alcohol illegally all over the country. Later, a couple years later, I believe it was 7 or 8 years, he retired after almost being killed by an opposing gang member, and he ultimately gave the all the power to Capone after almost being shot and killed by a North Side gang member, which was the opposing gang that Torrio and Capone led. Um, Capone increased the business by using a lot more violence, um, known as all the way from murder just to burglary. And he many people saw Capone as a very respectable guy, very kind guy. Uh, Ultimately, because of his relationship with the mayor, William Hale Thompson, and also his relationship with the Chicago police is very interesting because we know him. Most people know him as a very bad guy and one of the worst criminals to have ever lived. And then we have some more people that see him as a guy that helps charities. He gives money to charities. He he serves community service. Very interesting. While Capone was in jail for the second time because of contempt in court, which means he was showing disrespect to the laws or members of the court. The federal treasury gathered evidence to convict Al Capone of tax evasion. Um, this would end Capone's 33-year reign to the leader of crime in the early 1900s. And on October 17, 1931, Al Capone was convicted of tax evasion. His lawyer, also known as the defense lawyer, was named Edward Joseph O'Hare, and this man was also very wealthy and had been in the law firm business for many years. And so, after when Capone was found guilty of tax evasion, he started serving his time in the U.S. penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. He was later transferred to the maximum security lockup of Alcatraz Island in California, San Francisco Bay. He was transferred there because he was accused of manipulating the jail system to receive cushy treatment, and That's why he was transferred. And here's one of the most famous quotes that Al Capone was known for. It says, "I'm a kind person. I'm kind to everyone, but if you are unkind to me, then kindness is not what you'll remember me for." So this says that also he knew that people saw him as a kind person, but he knew just the opposite because he knew that other people also saw him as an unkind person and a person that was not very fun to be around, I guess you could say. Why was Al Capone arrested for such a silly crime? He was one of the most dangerous people alive and was rated a 5-point gangster. He committed many murders. He was involved in many drug busts and much more. Actually, one of the biggest crimes he committed. He was also one of the biggest crimes he committed was the Saint Valentine massacre, which was killing 7 men in broad daylight. And another fact that I found, he was also part of the Chicago outfit, and this was a big part of the American Mafia, which was an illegal organization that sold alcohol and sold illegal drugs. um, so he was arrested for such a silly crime because no one, the government, the FBI, the Chicago police could not find any evidence or find any witnesses that they could use to prove Al Capone um, of any of the horrific crimes that we know he committed. But they could prove him of tax evasion because you do not need any witnesses, you don't need any proof, you don't need any evidence that he committed tax evasion. All you need is data, and they easily could get access to the data to prove him guilty. Jail life and death. So Al Capone, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison and was charged $80,000 for court costs and anonymous fines relating to his charges. Like I said before, he started in the U.S. penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia, but was transferred to the maximum security lockup, which was in Alcatraz Island. Um, Al Capone was released early in 1939 for good behavior, but also he was released because of he was suffering from a very severe case of syphilis, and this would remain for the rest of his entire life, which forced him to visit the hospital very often, and he later died in 1947 in his home in Palm Island, Florida. So this is my opinion of the trial. I'm just going to read this. In my opinion, the trial went in Capone's favor. Al Capone is America's best-known gangster and the best-known person to cause the collapse of the law and order in the United States during the early 1900s. For instance, he committed the crimes of bootlegging, prostitution, and illegal gambling. Capone had an important part in the illegal activities that gave Chicago its reputation as a not-so-good city when it comes to the types of crime that occur in that city. The law knows, just like the people in Chicago, that Capone committed the most horrifying crimes that anyone has ever seen. They easily could have put him in jail, but they had to prove it, and no one could. All of Capone's operations were done with months of planning and perfect execution. Therefore, there were no witnesses nor any evidence that the government could use to prove him guilty. Therefore, he was found non-guilty for all the horrific crimes he committed. However, tax evasion is known as one of the easiest crimes to accuse someone of, and this is because you do not need any evidence or witnesses, and all you need is data, and they obviously could get that very easily. This is my works cited page. Thank you.